right, guys. Well, we are live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody, to the Not Your Average Investor Show. I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, my extraordinary co-host, Greg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
And today's guest is a guy that from day one, right, Greg, when we first started formulating this show, you're like, oh, I got a guy, right? We've been looking forward to have him on. He is a real estate attorney and a financial planner with some great insights into investing and building wealth. He's also a 12-year NFL veteran, played in the Super Bowl, was named the Jacksonville Jaguars Man of the Year, first-round draft pick, proud Penn State alumnus, and I'm not sure if this is verified, but the biggest JWB client by mass.
By mass, okay. I'll take that title. Yeah.
Welcome, Kyle Brady.
Hey, thanks, Pablo. I appreciate it. Appreciate you and Greg hosting me today.
Man, we're really pumped to have you on board. The back and forth that we've had already, the storytelling, I think it's going to be a lot of value. And I just want to get through a little bit of housekeeping real quick so everybody knows what we got going on here. And then we're going to jump right into it. Is that all right? Okay. So I want to tell everybody that's joining us on Zoom, we have a couple of different options to communicate with us. We have the Q&A box where if you have any questions for us, if you want us to ask any questions live on air, please put them in there. Then there's also the chat box where you can chat with each other and you can even chat with us. You just have to change the drop-down menu from all panelists to all panelists and attendees so other people see it. And anything that you put in there, we're saving. Any question that we don't get to by the end of the call, we will answer on our Thursday call. We're going to try to, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about with Kyle here, but if at any point you want to take a call with JWB, you are very interested in rental property investing, all you got to do is go to
chatwithjwb.com. You were waiting for your co-host to help you out with that, weren't you?
That's why they call you the Tony Romo of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Chatwithjwb.com. We'll talk about our Facebook group later, but I want to get into the conversation as soon as possible so that we can get the most out of Kyle's time, which is really valuable. And Kyle, I'm gonna start off with a heavy question, man, if that's okay. You know, we've been writing this historic bull market for 11 years. We've all been having a good time here, and now we're facing this unprecedented hardship. And when we were getting ready for your call, I couldn't help but think about your career as an NFL veteran, right? Like 12 years in the NFL, which is 4 times longer than the average career, culminates in a Super Bowl on a historically good team, which is that 19-0 Patriots team, and it ends with an unforeseen loss. And the question is, number one, what's it feel like to play in a Super Bowl, man? Just give us a little bit of insight into that one. And then how do you rebound from that and reinvent yourself to have had this really successful next act that you've had? If you could give us some insight into that.
Well, playing the Super Bowl was surreal. I mean, it was a culmination of a lifetime of work all in one night. You know, you as a youngster, you know, many young boys and girls as well dream of the opportunity to be a professional athlete. I was very similar in that I dreamed that dream, you know, many times on sports fields growing up, practice fields, but you're never quite sure it's going to happen. And then when you get to the pros, you know, the goal is, oh, maybe I can get to a championship. And for me, some guys are fortunate enough to be on teams that they go to multiple championships. And I was actually friends with Bill Belichick. We knew each other from the time I was with the Jets and the New York Jets, and he was on our staff. So when I got free from my contract with the Jaguars, he pulled me up there, and I wished I'd have gotten up there a little bit earlier because I would have been had a chance to be on a couple other championship teams. But anyway, it was surreal. It was fun. And, you know, my wife noticed that even during my playing years, you know, we had a really nice off season, some time that we had off just to kind of travel and relax and let your body recover. But I was always managing to find ways to keep myself busy, you know, whether it was learning something or finding books to read and things like that. So I've always been one to kind of keep moving and looking forward, you know, as opposed to always looking backward. I mean, I appreciate the memories and the relationships I had and the camaraderie that I had a chance to build in the NFL, but I was always kind of looking forward to the chance to find something new, find a new passion, you know, find other things that I'd be interested in. Because I knew I had a lot of other interests. So when I finished up playing, I mean, even though there was a lot of different things that were very disorienting, to be honest, the lack of structure that the game provided and the camaraderie provided all those years, I just had to figure out a way to recreate that. And I managed to do that through the pursuit of getting into the finance and real estate industries. And now that's kind of what I'm doing.
Interesting, man. So did you have finance and real estate kind of in your foreground? Like, did you have this foresight that you wanted to go back and help players invest in stuff like that? Was that something that you had started working on?
Well, not really. I mean, when I was an undergrad at Penn State, I was an exercise physiology major, and I had a business minor, so the thought was maybe to go into physical therapy. But as the years went by and I spent the amount of time I was blessed to have the chance to spend in the NFL. I mean, I was a player rep for our team, so I was the union representative. So I really had a chance in that context, in that setting, to get to know how the NFL worked as a business. And it is a very big business, a multi-billion-dollar business. And the player reps, the guys that represented each team's interest for our union, we kind of got our heads around our collective bargaining agreement and the television contracts and the other endorsement deals, all that kind of stuff. So you start to get a bit of a business education. So when I finished playing, I thought, man, actually it was 2008. It was the world was proverbially going to hell in a handbasket, financially speaking. And I mean, there was people I knew that had been in the work world for quite some time that were laid off and in the streets. And I thought, well, what next for me in the midst of this kind of setting? And I thought, why don't I just try to professionally recreate myself and get on with my life and get educated in some different areas. And I thought, well, what better areas to get to understand as far as kind of where I'm at now, maybe even how to manage my own stuff, that I had to try to be diligent of saving back when I was in my playing years. And I thought, why don't I learn finance first of all? So I got deep into studying finance, and the way I did that was by pursuing the different licensure exams, the Series 7 and 66, and these will be familiar to people who are familiar with the finance world, enable you to be like a broker, work with a broker dealer, work in the stock, the trading industry, that type of thing. And that's kind of how I pursued that, and then became a certified financial planner. And then I thought, well, I'm in education mode. Why stop now? So I continued on to law school. I had a neighbor here in Florida that was a law school professor, audited some classes, and I was fascinated by it. I thought, this is all information and education that would be tremendously beneficial for me to take with me for the rest of my life. So I went ahead and did that, and it by no means was easy. It was 5 years of some of it very tedious and monotonous, but at the same time, I went through 13 training camps with coaches like Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, Tom Coughlin, some of the toughest coaches in history. So I was, sitting in the law library, scratching my head like I was 38 years old. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I'm like, you know what? If I can get through all those years of playing for those coaches, I can get through this. So I just tried to put my head down and put the work in. And now on the other side of it, I'm glad I did. Sorry, I'm terrible at making a short story. I'm good at making a short story long, as you might be able to tell. No lack of verbiage.
That's why we're here, brother. That's why we're here. Could you just kind of tell me about what the culture is like as a professional athlete and, gearing towards retirement? We know that a lot of professional athletes struggle financially. Not many are able to do what you have done. Were you sort of kind of like, let's call it an outcast or an oddball as far as somebody who was thinking so far along? Or does the NFL prepare you to have a lot of resources around you to encourage those who do have those aspirations to do it?
Those are several really good questions. The NFL, even throughout the course of my career from 1995 to 2008 or so, was doing a lot, implementing new programs to get players educated, even from the day they entered the league. So, for example, now and this didn't happen when I was drafted. When you get drafted, you're carted off in the next couple of weeks to what's called the Rookie Symposium, and basically that's like a 3-day crash course to help players understand. Listen, your life has changed, and hopefully for the better. If you make the right decisions, it will have changed for the better. But every young guy, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, they're going to make some mistakes, you know what I mean? And they just want to make guys aware and alert them and educate them to the way their lives have changed financially, that they're going to now have things they're going to need to be responsible for and aware of legally, all those kind of things. So, and that's just one example of the many things the league has done. And I applaud the NFL for that, because it's not stuff that they had to do. And even for players on the back end of their career, they put a lot of great programs in place and benefits that guys can take advantage of. But yeah, I guess somewhere along the way, I did kind of become a planner myself. And maybe part of that was along the way getting married and then having kids. You start to, as you guys know, you start to look out a little further in life and start to think, hey, this thing isn't just all about me. I now have people I'm responsible for. So I guess I just always, at some point along the way, started taking that seriously. And that's what sort of But yeah, I guess in some ways I was a bit of an anomaly in our locker room, but I was flattered because guys kind of see that you're a little more serious-minded, and that maybe and they see that you kind of have their best interests at heart. Like, to be a player rep, like the thing I was mentioning earlier, that's a position that was voted for. I was voted into that position for 7 straight years by my teammates, and I took that as a compliment. That they thought highly of my looking out for them, and so they come to you. When you're in your 30s in the NFL, you're considered an old man. So when I was in my 30s, it was very common for young players to come over to my locker and just want to pick my brain about maybe their upcoming contract and the decision about where to sign, or even maybe how to invest their 401k funds and things of that nature. So I try to be as helpful as I could with that, and yeah, I enjoyed that role.
Well, now we're going to pick your brain here, if that's okay. First,
Sure.
I want to give a little bit of love for some of our regulars that show up here and are always so supportive. Lee Bishop, Marilyn Cotterman, Everett Shapiro, good to have you. We got a couple of Penn State fans in the house that want to show you some love as well. We got Jay Cohen. We've got another one here,
Pops.
Kyle Riasinger.
Pops in the house. I told Pops I was going to be chatting with Kyle today, and he
Penn Stater.
Oh yeah, my dad's a huge Penn State.
Man, I'm so focused here that I know that your dad's going to be here. I saw the last name Cohen and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, we're happy to have Pop in the house. Kyle, can you tell us a little bit about what's your investment philosophy, right? Like you are a financial planner, you have real estate in your portfolio. When I first got on the phone, you told me kind of your overall approach to real estate and investing. Can you just walk us through that?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Actually, I try to take a long-term view toward investing, because I'm 48 years old and I look at my investing horizon as being at least 12 years, 12 years long, if not longer. I mean, you have 2 different types of investing in some respects from a tax perspective in the world. There's non-tax qualified funds, monies that you have that exist outside of the tax beneficial world, and then the IRS has tax qualified funds, like things like IRAs and 401ks. So I try to take a long-term view with all of them, and taking a long-term view makes it so that on the stock and bond side, I stay primarily invested in and exposed to equities. I think equities are the best way in the stock and bond market to generate long-term wealth and to create long-term wealth. I mean, history's on the side of that statement. If I could recommend a good couple books maybe to the people who are listening, I would recommend one. Author's last name is Murray. It's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. That's one of the best books I've ever read about investing in the stock markets for the long term. And if you enjoy that book and it's kind of up your alley, there's one that gets a lot deeper and it's more technical. It's called Stocks for the Long Run. And the last name of the author of that one is called Jeremy Siegel. So if you read those 2 books, you'll get in a nutshell what my investing philosophy is in terms of the markets. And when it comes to real estate, I think real estate's a great diversifier. It's most oftentimes in different market cycles, it's non-correlated. And when I say non-correlated, I mean it's not necessarily correlated to the ups and downs of the stock market. For example, 2008 was kind of a unique situation. The downturn in the equities markets was precipitated by the mortgage meltdown, and by the securitization of mortgages and bundling them, and even corrupt rating agencies, all this craziness. And it caused everything to go, tumbling down in lockstep. Real estate, stocks, bonds, everything. That was somewhat unusual, though. You look at former bubbles and bursts and things like that, like let's say the tech bubble in 2000 to 2002. That was purely a market burst. The market went down 30-40%, but real estate stayed strong, and it persevered, and it even gained value at that time. And that's a little more typical. And I think that what we may see in this coronavirus pandemic and the market volatility and even correction that has occurred, because is that the real estate values, if we can get back to life as normal, and I'd be interested to hear Greg's thoughts on this. If we can get back to life as normal here fairly soon, this might be a little bit more of just a blip in the radar as far as real estate values and appreciation is concerned, because there's still some fundamental strength in the markets in general. I think that the real stock market's going to return as well once we get to that point. But anyway, once again, I've rambled on.
No, I agree with everything you're saying there. Some data that I've researched back in the past to talk about how past recessions don't necessarily lead to real estate crashes. We looked up the last 4 out of the last 5 recessions, and people would be surprised to know this, but real estate values, specifically in Jacksonville, but this is significant across the entire U.S. Values have actually appreciated on average 3.7% in 4 of the last 5 recessions, which would be shocking to most people. The only one that it didn't was the one that you're referencing, Kyle, the one in 2008, which was an anomaly. It was caused by real estate. And you know, I largely feel the same way about what coronavirus is going to do to the market today, to the real estate market today. The biggest change between what happened in 2008 versus what's happening here in coronavirus times is the fact that everybody knows that this is temporary, and that the metrics and the foundation leading into the real estate, in the real estate market leading into coronavirus, were very strong going in here. That was very different than what we felt back in 2008. We look at things like months of inventory, which tracks basically how many sales happen versus how much inventory is on the market. In 2008, we had like 18 months of inventory in the year leading up to that. Now we're at 3 months of inventory, which is a leading indicator for upward pressure on pricing. But the fact that everybody understands that this is temporary is different. It's not a systemic issue like we found in 2008. So I agree with you for sure.
You were talking a little bit before, Kyle, about you own some rental properties. You got into the rental property game, and now you're doing more private lending. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, kind of my first foray into real estate. Well, I owned a home when I was still in my playing years, and I'll never forget, the first home I ever bought was in 1996. A year after I signed my first contract, it was for $119,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhome in Pennsylvania. So I'll always remember that. But so years later, after I finished my playing career, and I was actually in the midst of law school, a friend of mine and I, we decided to build a rental portfolio because, similar, I'm sure, to Greg and his partners at JWB, we saw considerable opportunity to buy real estate. Even Warren Buffett was on. I heard him on the radio on NPR one time saying, if I was a person with a few dollars to spend these days to put into investment, I would buy homes. And he was forming private equity funds and doing just that, buying them by the thousands, I think, all over the country. And so I did that, and with a partner, and actually, we were looking at them more as cash flow opportunities because of our basis, how much we were buying them for. You could buy homes at that time, and Ray could tell, I'm sure, a ton of stories for the cost of a used car, a block home, that built in the 50s or 60s, and you could fix up and really make into a nice solid home to rent to someone. And, and now actually we're kind of reaping the reward of that foresight. And I wish we'd have done a whole lot more of it, to be honest, but we're now selling that portfolio over the last year to year and a half and doing pretty well, So I just was looking at it as a cash flow opportunity, as my partner was, in the back of our minds, thinking, well, hopefully these will appreciate, and they have considerably as Jacksonville has grown and the local economy has done well. So that was sort of my first foray, and then that kind of grew, and my interest was piqued as I learned more things in real estate about the securitization of collateral and things like that, and I started getting into lending. And actually, JWB was one of the first organizations I came across that I understood had a good, solid lending program, and I've been nothing but impressed with their professionalism and the team they've built from day one. And I love the family aspect of the culture there. You go in and eat lunch with them and stuff like that. You can tell everyone's made to feel like part of the family. So not only are they sharp business people and understand how to manage their business, but they do a great job in creating their corporate culture.
Thanks, Kyle. It means the world, buddy. And when we get back to normal, you got to come back and eat more lunch more often with us.
Man, you invite me to a meal, you better watch out. I'm going to take you up on it. I'm still a pretty big guy. You might not be able to tell on this camera. Greg knows, though. Yeah, I'll have 2 meals ready for me and 2 desserts, please.
You got it, buddy. It's all you can eat. Hey, when you were talking about your investing philosophy, you were talking about how equities are a part of it, and you feel like that's a huge component of how to build long-term wealth. And you talked about real estate. One thing you didn't talk about was bonds, right? Is that because you feel like private lending and owning rental properties is a better alternative to bonds, or what are your thoughts on that? You're
exactly right. I'm not sure if you've had this conversation before, but I do. I look at my my lending portfolio as my bond holdings. So these days, if you want to buy good quality bonds, you're going to buy a bond from, they say, Apple Computers or General Electric, or those are corporate issuers, or even municipal bonds. And all these things, again, these are things to take into account with your CPA and your specific tax circumstances, things like that. But good quality paper is going to yield, somewhere between 3 and 4.5% right now because interest rates are so low, and that's not bad. I mean, that's kind of historically maybe what you'd expect for bonds. Sometimes higher, depending on the interest rate environment. But I kind of look at it like if you can properly underwrite a lending portfolio and you make sure to mind your P's and Q's and don't extend yourself too much and get too much money out to a borrower at the wrong time, things of that nature, which is all kind of part of that underwriting process, you can generate a much better yield, even in some cases 3 times the yield of quality corporate paper. And it's truly is a fixed income instrument. Holding these mortgages is very similar to holding bonds. And they're short term though, so it does require some effort to keep the money out there, and you have to always be looking for more opportunities.
Yeah, it was interesting. I did some research on, checked a recent poll that was administered to Americans, and they asked what percentage of Americans think bonds are the best investment out there, and only 5 to 7% of people thought that bonds were the best investment. But almost half, when they asked those people, almost half of those people had bonds in their portfolio. And to me, what that communicated, I largely feel the same way you do there as far as bonds versus real estate. But what it means to me is that bonds are easy to do. People generally understand how to do it. The thing that holds people back from private lending or owning rental properties is that people believe it's hard, so
they think it's too complex. And if they do it in the wrong context or without the proper knowledge, it can be dangerous for them. And a lot of people are not that financially savvy, and our educational system unfortunately doesn't give people a good education in regards to personal finance and investing and things of that nature. That's why sometimes you kind of have to go out and seek that knowledge out on your own. And and it's just when they go to their financial advisor, or that's the they kind of have a buffet, let's say, in their 401k, and the buffet includes certain equity mutual funds and certain bond mutual funds. And they talk to a buddy theirs and they say, well, what should my breakdown be? I don't know, 70-30, and then they just go and they buy some bond funds. And yeah, it's kind of easier. And investing and lending with you guys has been really, to me, as turnkey, probably as someone who buys a rental, because of the fact you guys have such a team of people built up around you. And it's a little more labor intensive if you kind of do it on your own with other individual borrowers, but at the same time, it's knowledge you can get these days in the information age for certain.
Kyle, I want to get your chance. We've got another 5 minutes here that we're slotted. I know you can be with us another 15 minutes. So I want to pick your brain about a couple of other things and then open it up. We got a couple questions here to ask you, if that's okay. Sure. We referenced that you have played for some of the most legendary coaches of the era that you played in, right? Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, Tom Coughlin, Joe Paterno, right? Like those are all big names in that world. And I'm just curious to know any overall lessons on leadership, and if you got like a good story for us somewhere in there.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, it was such a privilege. As I look back, honestly, that was the most noteworthy thing really about my career. I mean, I had a chance to, as you mentioned, put together a fairly long career, and thankfully I stayed healthy during that career. But the most noteworthy thing by far was the leaders I had a chance to play for. I mean, 4 Hall of Fame caliber coaches, and even my high school coach was a Pennsylvania Hall of Fame coach for wrestling and football and all kind of thing. But those coaches all had sort of common themes and common expectations, and they built a culture that was very similar. And it's centered around, attentiveness to detail and hard work. And some of these things are on the wall in Bill Belichick's locker room. Be attentive, work hard, do your job, and put the team first. I look at the Penn State uniforms, and some people think they're the ugliest things ever. And in some respects, they are. I mean, they look like practice uniforms, but those uniforms are beautiful to every guy who ever played in them because what they signify. No names on the back of the jerseys, black cleats, very plain, nothing on the helmet. It was because it was all about the team. It wasn't about you, and really, if you're going to thrive in a team environment where, it means putting your desires at times on the altar, so to speak, for the sake of the greater good. I mean, you need people with a team mentality. So, one story that I think is great, though, in regards to attentiveness to detail is that people seem to enjoy is, Joe Paterno. He got to Penn State in 1948. I arrived in 1994. I thought he was an old man at that time. He went on to coach another He was there for 60 some years. I mean, we're probably never going to see anything like that again. And Joe was just an outstanding coach, an amazing human being, and a great mentor of young men. And when I'll never forget the story he told about the Immaculate Reception. Now, you guys know who made the Immaculate Reception.
Oh, yeah, Franco, baby.
Franco Harris. You're a Steeler fan. If you didn't know that, I would have given you an F for fandom.
I think my dad would have disowned me.
Yeah, I bet he would. Is he on the call right now?
He is.
Okay, good. Well, he's going to enjoy this story. So, we were sitting there in a squad meeting one day, and Joe starts telling the story. He goes, that catch that Franco made. Joe had a high-pitched Brooklyn accent. He used to, every single player that ever played for him can imitate this voice I'm doing for you right now. Like, let me tell you something about that catch. And he goes back in the history to when Franco Harris arrived on campus. Franco was a young, talented player. He was big and strong, and I've met Franco, and I've verified this story. Franco's like almost my size. I'm 6'6", 280 pounds. Franco's probably 6'4", and when he played, probably 230. That was a monster back in the 1970s. When Franco arrived on campus at Penn State, though, he was a very raw player, like all guys coming out of high school. He wasn't polished. And when Franco had the ball in his hands, and he would come alive. He could make you miss. He could run through you. He could outrun you, whatever. He had speed, strength, and jukes, everything else. But when he didn't have the ball in his hands, he was somewhat undisciplined. He didn't always do the little things right. One thing Joe Paterno was a stickler for everybody on his team to do, linemen, other receivers, when the ball was thrown downfield, forward pass, everybody, he wanted them all to run to the ball. And he noticed that Franco would just kind of be lollygagging along, watching the ball in the air. He'd say, Franco, what are you doing? You might as well be taking tickets in the stands. Go to the ball, Franco. Go to the ball. So, and he was on Franco constantly because Franco would just be lollygagging and he would just be on him. His freshman and sophomore year, and who likes to be embarrassed in front of your teammates, in front of your peers? Nobody, So right. Finally, it just becomes a thing that Franco does. Or, Joe will catch him in practice one more time. Come on, Franco, how many times am I going to tell you to go to the ball? So eventually it just becomes who Franco is. By his junior and senior year, when that ball is thrown downfield, because, you think about it. When a ball is thrown downfield, some good things can happen. Receiver can catch it for a first down or a touchdown, but a lot of bad things can happen too. There can be an interception. Receiver could catch it and fumble it. Ball could be tipped up in the air, and then it's anybody's ball. So that's why he wanted all his players down around that ball. Good thing has happened, the more of your team's color you have around the ball. So it just became a part of his ingrained habits. So fast forward a number of years, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I've talked to NFL players from back in the era of when the Steelers were just building their franchise. They brought in a young coach named Chuck Noll, and they were the perennial doormat of the NFL, though, the Steelers. You pretty much chalked it up as a win back in the 60s when you had the Steelers on your schedule. But then Noll comes in, he starts drafting household names like Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Mean Joe Green, Lynn Swann, Terry Bradshaw, and Franco Harris. He brings all these young guys together from all over the country, different colleges, and by the early 1970s, they start making a splash. They start making a name for themselves in the NFL, and really, he wanted to build a tough football team that was strong defensively, and he was doing a great job of bringing the talent in that he had. But the two bullies in the AFC at that time, they were going to prevent the Steelers from getting to the Super Bowl, were the John Madden coached Oakland Raiders and the Miami Dolphins coached by Don Shula. Don Shula's Dolphins, 1972, they went undefeated. So those were the two teams that Steelers were going to have to get through if they wanted to go to the big dance and have a chance at the championship. So as it turns out, the Raiders come to town for a playoff game in Three River Stadium, and gets down to the end of the game, minute and a half left, and it's basically a desperate situation. I think the Steelers are down by 5 points. They need a touchdown, very little time left. So Terry Bradshaw's just going to drop back and heave a desperation pass downfield. So he throws the ball downfield to a guy named Frenchie Fuqua, with a great football name. And Jack Tatum, defensive back for the Oakland Raiders, he jumps up and tries to hammer the ball down into the turf. Instead of the ball going into the turf, it starts twirling in the air, though. And if you can call this thing up, and for everybody that's listening today, I wanted to call it up on YouTube and watch this. You're going to see one person streaking downfield in black and gold, and that was number 32, Franco Harris. He runs downfield. I like to use body language with this story. I can show my hands. Like, he scoops the ball up literally like only a foot from the turf. Many Raiders fans think it hit the turf, but the instant replay didn't show, and they didn't have instant replay back then anyway. So the refs called it a good catch. He streaks down the field, and Joe Paterno brings us back in that moment as he's telling us the story. He says, "What do you think he heard in his head when that ball was in the air downfield? He had me yelling, "Go to the ball, Franco! Go to the ball!" Franco picks it up, runs down the field, scores a touchdown, and gets the Steelers over those bullies. Now you look back on these guys and the fact that they won all these championships and household names and Hall of Fame players, but it took some big play to be made by one guy during a critical situation. And that you don't know when that critical play is going to happen. And you don't know when your opportunity to make that play is going to happen. But the preparation and the attention to detail that Joe Paterno put Franco Harris through on those practice fields up in, out in the middle of nowhere in State College, Pennsylvania, Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, in the middle of the mountains, the discipline he made him demonstrate on a daily basis and the attention to detail is what led to that play, which was a play that then led to a dynasty. I mean, you don't know when it's going to happen, but those are the kind of stories and the kind of, like, just an example though of the kind of lessons that those guys taught on a daily basis, and that story kind of dynamically exposes a funny, kind of a funny story that shows the type of leader and the type of values they try to instill in us. But so I was exposed not only, with Joe Paterno's way of doing it, but so many others, with Belichick, Coughlin, and Parcells. And it was fun. It was a great privilege.
What an incredible story, buddy. Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. I mean, it's basically like my greatest moment as a Steeler fan relived here on the Not Your Average Investor show. And I couldn't be more happy. And definitely that ball did not hit the turf. And definitely that ball was touched by the defender versus the offensive guy first. Because
that's another thing. Yes, another part of the controversy of that play. And I was a Raider fan growing up, so I didn't like that play. But I do love the story, and I love the fact that I'm so familiar with some of the characters involved in it.
Yeah, that is good stuff, buddy.
Sure.
I feel like that was worth all the work that we've put into this just to hear that thing backstage here for you, for your dad, for everything. That was awesome, Kyle. Thank you, man. I've been dying to hear that story ever since you read it. Yeah. So I just want to say, we've come up on the half an hour. That was awesome. I'm still kind of jarred by like hearing you do the Joe Paterno voice. I didn't see that coming with like all that bass and then going into that high pitch.
Yeah. Oh man, I tell you what, it's ingrained deep in my soul. So there's a special place in my voice box just for that imitation.
It's great. It's great. I just want to encourage anybody. We're gonna have a little Q&A. If you want to ask some questions, we have two already here queued up to ask Kyle. But if anybody has any more questions, go to the Q&A. But equally as importantly, if you want to get on a call with our team, Stephen Block is asking about private lending. Greg, I just want to confirm with you, is chat with jwb.com a good way for him to talk about private lending?
That's the best place right there.
Without further ado, I also want to encourage everybody. We have this Facebook group, right? It's like we call it our cool club, and we encourage anybody that wants to be a part of the ongoing conversation. Greg goes live in there every single morning. We post small clips of the show. We engage with different things. I started doing memes about Greg and his beliefs around real estate investment. I think that's getting pretty good reviews.
It was a hit, brother.
It was a hit, right? I know I'm going to mess up this web address. Go to jwbrealestatecapital.com/group.
You nailed it, brother.
Cool. So jwbrealestatecapital.com/group. If you want to join our Facebook group, we got over 1,000 people in there, people like you that are savvy investors. I want to, learn more about real estate investing and whatnot. That's where we interact on a daily basis. If not, we have this call. We have our Thursday call that we do exclusively Q&A. You can ask Greg anything, right? Like anything. It can be about real estate investing. It can be about who wins in our morning runs. Whatever you want to ask him. That is jwbqa.com, and the and is spelled out. So now, without further ado, that's enough stuff of me rambling. I want to ask a couple of questions here. Lee Bishop, who is our MVP of our community that always shows up to our calls, always has great questions. He asked that I met and talked to players on the Ravens while attending a favorite watering hole near the training camp about retiring and investing. And he was told that they get help with that area from the franchise. How is Kyle able to reach out and advise NFL players in other states on real estate investment advice?
Yeah, so I have an opportunity really primarily with the guys here in the Jacksonville market and primarily former players, the guys who I stay, in more social contact with. But I have had opportunities along the way to advise current players from all different teams around the country. Sometimes in regards to equity investing, but yeah, more oftentimes actually in regards to real estate. There's actually an organization called Financial Finesse, and it's an organization that has a relationship with the NFL, the current and former Players Association, and they refer players that have any kind of questions to that organization. Just because they're an objective source. They have no skin in the game. They're not making any money on the player from advisory fees or from commissions on sold products and things of that nature. So they send the guys to that. And occasionally I've had the advisors with Financial Finesse that I've gotten to know refer players to me just for general guidance in the area of real estate. So that's one. And actually, I really enjoy those opportunities. It's a chance to I look at it like giving back to the community that I really enjoyed being a part of for as long as I did. I don't really necessarily have formal relationships, although through the affiliation I have with a law firm, we do some estate planning for NFL player clients. But in regards to real estate investing, I just pepper some advice in here and there in opportunities that I have to mentor them.
Cool. Very interesting behind the scenes look into how all that works. Earlier in the call, Sid Sastry had a question. Greg, I think this is a question for you. Are you able to obtain lending on a non-recourse basis for real estate LLC?
Yeah, it's a great question. So they're asking about non-recourse loans, and this ties in with the qualified plans that Kyle was talking about. Qualified plans meaning retirement account funds. And when you are buying an asset in your retirement account, when you're buying a rental property in your retirement account, most people don't believe that you can actually get lending on that. And you can. It's just a very specific type of lending. It's called non-recourse lending. Recourse lending would be like a normal bank loan you get when you buy it in your personal name. You go down to Bank of America and you get a loan. They have recourse against you and your credit score if you don't make the payments. When you're buying in a retirement account, they don't have that same recourse. It's called a non-recourse loan, and many banks are not willing to do it. But JWB obviously has found those relationships of those niche lenders that do non-recourse loans. And it's a way for our clients to be able to purchase more assets in their retirement accounts. And to do that and obtain non-recourse lending is something that we're very familiar with. So if you have specific questions, I invite you to go to chatwithjwb.com, talk to my team, and we can certainly make that happen for you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Kyle, this isn't a crowd question, right? But you mentioned something about how you are now selling your rental income properties. Can I ask you kind of why you're moving off of that class? Are you cashing out? Is it something else?
Well, it was a number of factors. Really just, I think, a good opportunity in the market cycle where real estate values were pretty well appreciated and interest rates were still low, which means that affordability is still very high, and we just thought it'd probably be a good time to, as the old saying goes, take some cash off the table. I wasn't as interested in being a co-manager of the portfolio, being that I've got a lot of other things going on. I've kind of really grown out the private lending side of what I do business-wise. So that could be somewhat time-consuming if you're doing a decent amount of it and you're trying to, do a lot of things in-house with it. So my partner was fine with it, and we're probably going to maintain a few of them and figure out how to actually, as I've been talking today, I'm thinking I got to talk to Greg, these guys being so expert in how to get rid of parts of your portfolio. I think he'd have a lot of great ideas for me. But so yeah, we'll talk about that offline later. But yeah, it was just really, just a good time, I think, in the market cycle to pair off some of it.
Well, yeah, listen, I would also recommend you to talk to Greg if you want to pick up a couple more and not have to worry about managing it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
That's it, Kyle. We got no more questions today. This has been an amazing call. Thank you so much for being here. Amazing stories, really great value. I like to let Greg kind of wrap these ones up. Greg, if you got anything to say. Did we lose him?
Looks like we might have. He's not on the top of my view. Panelist. Well, thanks for having me, Pablo, and tell Greg I appreciate it as well if we did happen to lose him.
I will. Listen, man, is there anything, I don't want you to, we got a couple people in the chat saying thank you, Kyle, and saying that they really enjoyed your stories and your answers and everything like that. I want to reflect that from Lee Bishop, from Cassandra Conister, from Robert Jones. handful of folks here. Lee Bishop said his jaw dropped with that story. So, you provided, we got him back.
Did you guys miss me?
Yeah, definitely, man.
We did miss you.
Yeah. So I was just saying, I was just thanking Kyle. Kyle, I want you to have a chance to, is there any platform? Is there a charity that you care about? Is there any way that we can support you in any way? I want to kind of give you the opportunity to say that, and then I'll kick it off to Greg to kind of like say goodbye.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Well, I guess being here in Jacksonville, and I mentioned these great coaches I played for. I know the Tom Coughlin J Fund does great things here in Jacksonville for young kids with pediatric cancer and helps their families tremendously. And I'm sure, especially at a time like this with the coronavirus pandemic and people being laid off and things of that nature, a gift to them would be as helpful as it has ever been and appreciated as it has ever been. I'm friends with their family, with Tom and Judy and their daughter Kelly and their boys and everything like that. So that's one that I've been involved with for years. And if people care to make a gift to them, I'm sure it'd be highly appreciated.
All right, great.
Well, fantastic, brother. Well, hey, I just wanted to say thank you for being here with us. I know we all super appreciated the insight that you gave, and your stories were just unreal. We're already getting requests to bring you back from some of the folks that have been chatting here. So we'll have to do that. But more than that, it's so fun being surrounded by people like you. I think about one of the greatest gifts that I've been given is to be able to be a part of JWB and my 3 business partners and my team here. And it's just, it creates such a wonderful way of life. And it's the same way with you and with our clients. And, you just surround yourself with people that are positive, that are going places, that treat people the right way. And as I said, it just makes life a whole lot more fun. So love hanging out with you virtually. I'm excited for you to come over and eat lunch more often here. I've got at least 2 meals laid out for you. Don't worry about it.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. It's great being here with you. I appreciate everything.
Okay, great. Hope to see everybody on the Q&A version of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm going to leave this going without any cameras or without audio in case there's any more questions I want to filter in, and we'll capture them for next week. I see Marina Wong, you're asking about the rental versus private lending analysis portion of it. I think it was in the middle there. We can definitely dive deeper into that in the Q&A section, or if you have any kind of specific question that you want to ask us, we're happy to reach out. I'll have our team do that, and hope to see people in the group. If you have a question, chat with jwb.com. If you want to join us in the group, jwbrealestatecapital.com/group. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this week on the Not Your Average Investor Show. Kyle, have a great one, my friend.
You guys, take care.
Okay.
See you guys.